Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sherelle and I'm a therapist who specialises in health anxiety. So what I really wanted to talk about in today's video is how to get our lives back, right? How do we make life meaningful again? Because if it's one thing that I experienced through my own health anxiety journey was that life just became unbearable. I thought I was dying every single day, so understandably, I didn't want to do anything, and my life became smaller and smaller and smaller. So I stopped seeing my friends, I stopped going to the gym, I stopped my hobbies, I stopped everything, really. The health anxiety completely took over me and my life and my personality and my desires and my values, just everything. And I see that a lot with my clients. What happens is that our life does get smaller, and when it gets smaller, we then feel more miserable and we get stuck in this endless loop of feeling terrible, but we are actually making it worse for ourselves. So one thing that we need to start thinking about is health anxiety causes suffering, an immense amount of suffering. I suffered tremendously with my own health anxiety. So we suffer, and what we need to start thinking about is this acceptance of life is going to involve suffering, whether it's physical suffering, mental suffering. We're all going to suffer at some stage, and I know that's hard to hear, but what I do with my own therapy is we look at the human model of suffering and we think about how we can minimize the effects that this inevitable suffering has on us and our lives. So what we need to start thinking about is, because we know that no matter who we are, no matter how much money we make, where we live, we're all going to go through suffering at some stage. And obviously with health anxiety, a lot of us, we're terrified of death, but we're also really scared of this idea of suffering. This idea of getting ill and having to go through treatment and having a timer put on our life per se. So that's really heavy to hold, firstly, really heavy to hold. And it's no wonder that we feel terrible when we believe that that's happening to us every single day. But because we know that life is going to involve suffering, we need to try and make life so great that it makes that suffering worth it. Okay, so what I mean by that is I got to a point with my own health anxiety where I wasn't living. I was just borderline surviving pretty much. And I got to the time and place in my life where I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to recover. I can't go through this anymore. Like, I can't continue living life the way that I'm living and wasting all of my best years in this awful health anxiety bubble. So I now look at life very, very differently. I've accepted that suffering is inevitable, whether it's going to be now, in 10 years' time, or in 30 years' time. I mean, my hopes is that any suffering that I do go through will be when I'm older, and I'll have that old age acceptance that only comes with age, really, I think, to kind of know that, right, well, now is my time, and I kind of accept it. But what I do now is I try to enrich my life so much that when I do get to that inevitable stage of suffering, that I will be able to look back at my life and say, do you know what? I had a good time here. I had a good time. I lived by my values. I went after my goals. I maintained my friendships, my relationships, my passions, my hobbies. So rather than making life smaller, what I always encourage my clients to do is to branch back out. Reconnect with the friends that you haven't seen in 4 years because of your anxiety. Go back to the gym if you've stopped exercising. Go back to doing that hobby, that pottery class, or learning the piano, or that swimming class. Set up that business that you've got in the back of your mind, because life is short and it doesn't wait for anybody. And I know that in itself is a health anxiety trigger, that knowledge of life being short, but it just is. And it's not that we need to convince ourselves that that's okay or we need to be happy about it, but we do need to learn to tolerate that fact. Tolerate the fact that life is short, it's going to involve suffering at some stage, And it's asking ourselves, so what am I going to do about that? Am I going to allow this anxiety to consume my every single waking moment and squeeze my life down so that I'm not really living anymore? Or am I going to say, okay, I surrender to these feelings. I don't like these feelings. I wish that life was different, but there's nothing I can do about it. I can only work on the things that I do have control over, which are all of these wonderful things that can bring us so much joy. When I had really bad health anxiety, and I became incredibly mentally unwell, suicidal, spent some time in hospital because I just could not get a handle on it at all. And I didn't see my friends for months. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping properly. All of my hobbies and passions were like way down the list of priorities because I thought I was dying every single day. But when I came out of hospital and I decided that I was going to recover, I started to branch back out. And there was an incredible amount of resistance to begin with. I didn't want to branch back out because I was still scared, but I decided to do it anyway. And it was the best thing that I ever did, because when I started seeing my friends again and I started reading books again and eating healthy food and going on my morning walks, I remember thinking to myself, wow, it's making a difference. I'm feeling better. And now I have more value and more purpose and more meaningfulness to my life. I feel more enriched and empowered, and it makes this suffering worthwhile. So think about your own life right now and think about what things that you're avoiding, things that you've stopped doing, things that you miss. Guaranteed every single one of you will be able to say one thing that has changed since having anxiety. And I want you to ask yourself, can I get that back? Can I reconnect with that friend? Can I go back to my yoga class? Can I work on my dream of having this self-employed business? Whatever the thing is, you can get there. So we need to create meaning in our life to make it worthwhile, so that the inevitable suffering that comes with life will be worth it. Because when we think about it like that, yes, life is scary and fragile and it can be tragic, but also if we can make it so meaningful, it will just tip the scales just a little bit. So I'd like you to think about that, because it's something that was completely life-changing for me and something that I do with my own clients now in my own practice, because I feel like it's so important. There will be some resistance, which is normal and natural, given the fact that lots of you have probably been anxious for a very long time. And so we've habitualized these behaviors. So breaking those can be a little bit uncomfortable, but as I always say, nothing grows from our comfort zone and we have to push through. So comment down below something that you are going to actively try to change, to get back, to work on, something that will enrich your life, something that will make the suffering worthwhile. I would absolutely love to hear your list of things. It may only be one thing or it may be 10 things, but just take the time to comment down below and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And if you would like to inquire about therapy sessions with myself, you can click the link in my bio. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, where I post daily health anxiety reels. My Instagram handle is the exact same on here, @SherelleThinks. Take care, guys. Bye.